The Canadian economy, already contending with inflation, tariffs, and a cost of living crisis, is also watching a steady and ongoing slump in the housing market. Thousands of condos are left unsold. The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation says about 2,500 new condos are sitting empty in Metro Vancouver. That's double what it was last year. And in Toronto, the CMHC says the weakening condo market appears to have similarities to the crash of the early 90s. Escalating costs from material and labor are some of the factors behind this market stall. So to help us understand some of the other factors behind this trend, I'm now joined by Murtaza Haider. He is the Executive Director of the Cities Institute at the University of Alberta. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, you just heard about what we're hearing from the CMHC in the Greater Vancouver area, in the Metro Vancouver area, and also in Toronto. I want to expand this conversation to the rest of Canada as well. What are we seeing across this country when it comes to housing?
I think there are a variety of trends going on. There's a stronger recovery one sees in terms of prices in eastern parts of Canada. But then in places like Ontario, especially Toronto, and to the very west in Vancouver or British Columbia, you see a bit of struggle in the markets in their march towards recovery. Right next door to British Columbia, Alberta is showing a little bit better signs. So it's not just one market, it's a collection of markets, and they are all in a different place in the recovery cycle.
So in terms of that recovery cycle, when do things look to be getting better, or perhaps some might say worse?
Well, I think it would have been a great year, this year, 2025, if the electoral outcomes in the United States were any different. All predictions and forecasts for the housing markets all the way up to November of last year were that 2025 would be a recovery year. But then came the President Trump's tariffs and the economic uncertainty, and that has delayed the recovery and maybe have pushed it forward by a year or more. And so the consensus amongst economists is that if the economic turmoil somehow disappears and there's some stability that returns, and at the same time we see a decline in mortgage rates so people's affordability improves, then you would see a return of the buyers in a larger number than and they would be buying more. Right now it's a buyer's market. There's a lot more supply out there, and people who are looking for deals, this is a good time to enter the market.
You know, when we look at some of the comments from Canada's Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and they say that the Toronto region has some parallels, what we're seeing in the condo market there has some parallels to the crash of the early 1990s. What are some of those parallels, and might it end differently?
I think there are less of parallels, if you ask me, now with the 1990s than before, because remember, when the markets crashed in 1989, 1990, the mortgage rates were 18%, 20%. Interest rates were very high. It was a very different regime, and the causes of the downturn were quite different. It was an economic recession brought about by a very heavy cost of borrowing. And at the same time, and now if you move forward, what we see today, that slowdown in the markets is essentially a result of economic instability brought about by the tariffs and on again, off again tariffs. So there are parallels, and the parallels are that you have a large inventory of unsold product and a moderate demand, but those parallels end there. The reasons for why markets are slow now are quite different from the reasons before. Even now, even with the higher mortgage rates, you're looking at 4.5%, 5%, and they are 1/3 of the mortgage rates in the 1989 or early 90s. So yes, there are parallels, but there are also the determinants of this decline are quite different from the past.
So what sort of impacts might we see from what we're seeing in the housing market? What could be the impact in different parts of the country, and also when it comes to Canada's housing crisis?
So the thing is that you have to realize that when housing prices go down, buyers walk away from the markets. They don't come to the market when prices are falling. Buyers return when prices are rising, and that's just human nature. You don't want to buy an asset that's losing value. So going forward, if you're looking at what are the determinants, I think as the sooner we get a deal with the United States on trade, the economic certainty will return. And as economic certainty will return and the mortgage rates continue to decline, and then there will be greater confidence amongst the buyers. Right now, people are just sitting on the fence, looking at the job market, looking at the economic uncertainty, looking at the mortgage rates. Many believe that the mortgage rates are going to decline in the near future, and hence they are withholding their purchase. They are thinking that as the rates go down even further, then they will enter the market maybe later in the year. So the April-May market for 2026, all else being equal, looks brighter than what we are seeing today.
So that was sort of my final question, or leads into my final question on the forecast. You know, when we're talking about next spring, that's one thing to look ahead to. Do you think there will be more certainty once a trade deal has been reached? And what sort of certainty or stability to the housing market could that bring?
A lot rests right now on the lack of certainty in the market. So the sooner we get to it, the sooner we are able to have a definitive deal, so that we can start planning our economy and we can start determining what we are going to export and what we are going to consume locally, and that would determine. And at the same time, remember that the federal government has put a big blockades in the demand for new housing. So foreign students, there were almost 600,000 foreign students were coming to Canada, and there were about 1 million temporary workers who were coming to Canada, and that has all stopped. So not only that we have this economic uncertainty, we also have a significant decline in demand for housing, which is because of the way we have stopped foreign workers and students. So this cycle will continue until such time that the demand resumes, and also when more favorable economic conditions prevail.
Many factors playing into this. Thank you so much for your time and for explaining it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That is Murtaza Haider. He is the Executive Director of the Cities Institute at the University of Alberta.